Right. Hi, it's Sarah. Welcome to the podcast. Today we have an interview. I'm so excited to share my friend Flo with you. Flo, why don't you introduce yourself?
I would love to. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Florencia Moynihan, and I am the Catholic Nutritionist. So I'm a functional nutritionist that primarily serves women who are looking to not only improve their hormones, their energy in the gut, but to do it in a way that really restores their relationship with food.
That's awesome. How did you get into all of this?
Yes. I always say any health practitioner you see, it's because they have issues on their own every
That's
single
right.
time. Um, so it's like this critical, honestly, just like a lifetime of struggling with a really difficult relationship with food, a lot of disordered eating, especially that peaked in high school and after college. And the dynamic duo of really, really, really bad PMS, and going to
Mm.
doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment and just being told to get on birth control or take 6 ibuprofen for 3 days in a row. Or and then also the combo of like really bad gut issues. So I was going in and out of doctor's appointments for years and years and years. And it wasn't until one, I realized that my relationship with food was so disordered that it like literally didn't have God in it, that then
Mm.
I also realized that we can use food to heal and to restore the body and not just to control it. So it was really out of the suffering and the pains and of being like, hang on a second. Now that I figured this out, everyone needs to know this. Like every woman deserves to know just how good her body is.
Yeah. I find your story, I think so many of us can relate to, just with the culture that we've grown up in. And what I really especially love is that you love femininity and you love God and you include that in your story. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness. I do. I've had a few people this year, like in the business world, right? Not like even on Instagram, but just let me start this over. I've had a few people this year be like, "Oh, the Catholic nutritionist. Like, how is that like this? How is that connected? Why did you do that?"
Yeah.
And this, which I at first I was like, "What?" Like it makes so much sense. But then I was like, "No, if someone walked up to me and I was like, I'm the Baptist nutritionist," I would be like, "Okay." Like you like really
Awesome.
yeah. I'd be like, "You really love being Baptist and
Mhm.
you're a nutritionist." But the way that I see it is one, that is like my primary identity is that I'm a beloved daughter of God. And so like the understanding that I can't, like physically cannot talk about this without it coming back to the creator. I don't think it makes any sense. And I think that's something that's really missing in our modern medical system,
Mhm.
is that we're just separated into parts
Yeah.
and there's no like awe and wonder for the human body anymore. It's
Mm.
that it has these problems and we have to fix it and there's something wrong with it. And yeah, it was just like almost it kind of leads the Christian woman to walk out and be like, did God forget about me? Like, did he
Yeah.
like not think through the fact that I was going to have a period every month? Like, do I just have to suffer with this? You know, like
Yeah.
it's
Is it
almost
really a
like,
curse?
yes, am I cursed? That's exactly like, am I just cursed to be a woman? But
Hmm.
the reality is that like God made you very, very good and he like makes good things with good plans. And
Yeah.
if obviously on this side of heaven, we are going to experience suffering, like we are going to experience brokenness, we're going to experience sickness. But at the same time, it feels like a lot of us are missing the owner's manual of it being like, hey, there's these very, very basic needs that the feminine body in particular has to be well. And so coming back to the root of that, I think is critical, especially for a Christian woman. That's the language that she speaks. Like
Yeah.
she speaks in terms of being like, okay, I see the world through this Christian lens. I see the world through this lens of like things having purpose, through God being in my life, through him being the one that created me. So I think approaching our health from that way is what sheds a lot of the frustration and where
Yeah.
like true freedom can be born.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I mean, for me, definitely it's how I see things. And I love that you make it such an integral part of your work because, like, with my own past being so similar to yours, like, that was the piece that I feel really led to me healing my relationship with food was like understanding that this creation, this body that I am in, is good and has purpose.
It's
Yeah.
essential, because otherwise, if we get fixated on just how it looks rather than how it works or what it's even doing for you,
Yeah.
like when your brain can expand beyond like, am I small enough?
Mm,
Everything can begin to unlock. Like
yeah.
when your brain can let go of the fact that your body isn't just this like vessel, it's not this like flesh suit that you're supposed to like control
Yeah.
and just to look a certain way, but that it's like I'm supposed to nourish it and strengthen it and take care of it. And actually, that teaches me how to live better in the world. That teaches me how to love my neighbor. That teaches me how to be able to serve people well.
Yeah.
It's less about you, and that's where freedom comes anyways. Like we
Oh,
hate it.
for
We
sure.
think that we want things to be about us, but then when we actually live in that like navel gazing place, it's like
It's so
hell.
miserable.
It's
It's the
hellish.
worst. It's like, oh, okay, so this is how to be miserable. Thanks for
L-
teaching me.
Literally, like
I've
left
got
to
it
my own
down.
devices, if I'm just left here to focus on me, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting what you talked about, like this focus of, am I small enough? And we put it in juxtaposition to, like, as entrepreneurs, when we're trying to shine our light and take up space and do good in the world, and you literally can't hold both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, it's completely consuming. I had the same thought of like, you talk about this a lot too, of like using your voice.
Yeah.
Like you have to learn how to use your voice, and even just with everything with body language is like the way that you enter the room matters, but what
Hmm.
informs the body language is what's going on in your mind. So how many women are
Hmm.
walking around with this minefield in their brain that they're like, if I sidestep here, if I touch this, I will crumble, like this will
Yeah.
blow up in my face. If I start to think too hard about how I look in this outfit before I get on stage, I'm going to lose it. Right. But instead, what if we just like knew like what and I love thinking about it as like the garden, right? We have the garden of our hearts, we have this garden of our minds, and you know what parts need to be trimmed and pruned. You know where the Lord needs to get in there and like do some tilling. You know where there's a massive fruit, and then there's freedom to walk about that. And then imagine how much more you can be planting and restoring the people around you inside of your business if you're like, hey, I'm not afraid of showing up because I know what's going on and I know that I'm not perfect, but I'm
Hmm.
also not just like consumed by my own insecurities.
Yeah. Because those insecurities, like, they're just getting in the way of the good things that we're all here to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can either be your block or it can be like the open door.
Yeah. So interesting. I feel like I told you this when we saw each other in September at Sales Mastery Live, but like I did a survey in this group that I'm a part of on women who are really aspirational. Like they have big dreams. They really care about education, about their careers, and they also care about God. And it was super interesting because I did this survey about confidence with them. The number one thing that got in their way was they were worried about what they looked like. And I was just like, still, even with people who feel such a sense of purpose, they're like, oh, but is it okay for me to show up looking the way that I do and my body being the size that it is or shaped the way that it is? And I just found that so interesting how prevalent that is.
The thing is like there's nothing new under the sun.
No.
And the realities, like there is a good reason why our Lord decided to speak about being the light on the hill and not hiding
Mm,
that light. Like
mm,
there's a reason that he gave us the parable of the 10 talents,
yeah.
the wicked servant hiding it. Like
Mm.
these are ancient struggles.
Yeah.
And when you think about women, something that I love, I heard a talk once where he was saying how like the first experience of woman, when we go back to the garden, Eve, is to be beheld as beautiful, right?
Mm,
And to be like looked upon and recognized and celebrated, right? The first experience of woman is what? She's created, she wakes up, and Adam looks at her and goes, at last, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right? Upon
yeah.
first sight, her first moment of her existence was this like almost being delighted in. So then we have
Yeah.
this like innate need in the feminine heart to be delighted in, which then can get like warped and distorted. And this is
Hmm.
where we see women kind of just like letting themselves be used or doing anything to any extreme to be regarded as beautiful. And the same thing, like within every single woman's heart, like these things are eternal truths, right?
Yeah.
That like the feminine heart like believes in beauty, and it like needs beauty, and it needs to be delighted in, which is where it's like a relationship with the father is critical, but that's like a whole other sidestep. But like
Yeah.
understanding that we will always care about how we look, but the thing
Hmm.
is we'll be left completely empty.
Yeah.
Don't start from a place of security and of freedom and of goodness, of like,
Yeah.
my body is good. And like, yeah, maybe I do want to change my hair color. Maybe I do have 10 pounds to lose. Maybe I have 50 pounds to lose, like whatever it may be. But there's like such a different disposition of heart
Hmm.
when it's coming from a place of like, yeah, and it's good. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
lovable. And it's like, it's okay for me to show up as I am right now, even if I still want to be better. Because the whole point, your whole life, you're going to want to be better. That's never going to
Always.
stop.
Yeah. And thank goodness. I like
Yeah.
that. I like we're supposed to progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're gonna die. It's like death. If you stop, that's the
Yeah.
that's the
Like
tragedy.
the universe is always expanding, like it's
So are
not
we.
done. So are
Yeah.
we.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, like, how has that informed you as an entrepreneur? This belief that you are good.
Oh goodness. I think one, it gives me well, to know that I didn't always think like that.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Like I do always have this thought of, man, like what would it have been like if someone had been able to like speak this into me when I
Mm,
really needed it? Like
yeah.
I think about like little 14-year-old me,
Mm,
and it's obviously not like I have an amazing family. It's not that no one ever cared, but like
yes.
in this way, in a language that would have made sense to me, if I could like have seen someone go through this and then come out on the other side and be like, hey, like life gets really, really good. Life gets really good.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives like a certain purpose. You talked about purpose and mission and like believing that what you have to
Hmm.
say is important. Really where it started for me was this idea of like, what is it that you are like watching? Imagine that you're like watching this happen on the news, and it makes you want to jump up off the couch and be like, someone needs to do something about this. Like, what
Mm,
is it that you have that level of a reaction to?
yeah.
That might be what God is calling you to do. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that I used to live that way. Like there's too many good, beautiful, like lovable women out there that have so much to offer the world and like are so precious and have no idea that the way that they're living is completely contradicting that and eroding that. And
Yeah.
the idea that like I believe that as women, we have a very, very particular responsibility in this
Mm,
world. We have a very particular role because of our capacity for communion and for motherhood. So like
yes.
the way that we engage with the world is so, so, so relational. Like if you think about your day, you could probably walk through and point out 10 different things that you do, or because some like mom, sister, friend, grandma told you about it. Like you've got this
Hmm.
like the part of your habits are just built by the women around you.
Yeah.
And like how much you think about the other women in your life, and like just how much we communicate with each other and we share our lives with each other. So when it's healthy, when it's beautiful, when it's holy, it is so good. But
Yes.
when it's not, like when we are passing down through generations, these like lies, these diabolical lies of like these warped perceptions of what your body is and what it's supposed to do, or how we treat it, or how we talk to it, or how we engage with our food, or that like your body's not going to heal, so just get on the medication and there's no other answer for you.
Mm.
Like that ripples for entire generations, and I think we've all seen that in our own lives.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love how you just talked about like you can choose, like, and the effects that it has. Like
Mhm.
when you're operating, you can choose to operate from a different place.
Yeah.
And but either way, like what you're doing and how you're operating has ripples
Yeah.
and it affects other people. But you
Yeah.
can like choose to operate from that place of goodness. And you do that so well with your business because like I see you fully embody that knowing of like you are good and look at what it does for other people because sometimes they don't have that belief yet, but you're like, that's okay. It's right here. I've got it. And you can work with me and then you can borrow some of my belief and eventually it'll become yours too.
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. That's very,
You're
very
welcome.
kind. And then that phrasing of like borrowing someone else's belief. That
Mm.
is so critical. If someone's never heard anyone say that, can you expand what you mean by that? Because I think that that is a critical point. If someone's listening, it's like she lives out of this goodness. Well, I don't know how to do that. But
Yeah.
what does it look like to borrow someone's belief?
Yeah. I feel like we all have to do it at different points where we can see someone else. It's like, um, pretend, and we see someone else who seems so solid in how they're standing. And what if we just like trusted that, like, we can see them? It's like proof, you know? And so we just trusted enough to act like maybe it could be a possibility, even just like playing with the idea of it. And then that helps us to build our own. But it's because we see somebody else that changes like how we're showing up.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And like, how many times did one person being like, oh, yeah, you've got it?
Yeah.
Like, I can't even count how many times that has changed the course of my life
Hmm.
because you're like, well, they seem really certain about this. Like, in
Yeah.
the reality of that's also a great example with body image. I think women that have struggled with a disordered relationship with food and with their body oftentimes can relate to looking back at a picture of yourself in high school where you thought that you were a cow. You were awful to yourself. You were like, I was so fat. You were doing horrible things to yourself. And you
Yeah.
look at that picture and your heart just breaks because
Mm.
you're like, what was she talking about? Like, what was I that's not reality. Like my brain was completely warped. That's not real. And you look at a picture of yourself 5 years ago and you do the same thing and you're like, dang, like I didn't even enjoy it. Cause a lot of times what happens is you're like, I don't look anything like what I did then. And I would kill to look like that, you know?
Yeah.
But like even when I was living in it, I didn't enjoy it. And I'm like, I promise you, that's going to happen again in the body that you're in right now. Like you are
Yeah.
going to look at it 15 years from now and be like, I was adorable. Like I was so beautiful. I was so young. Like I looked good, you know? And
Yeah.
so sometimes you cannot trust your own perception.
Oh,
That's
for
just
sure.
the reality. And sometimes you have to like learn how to trust your gut and be like, I really think I see something in myself. But when it's not healthy, being able to borrow from someone else and being like, I have so many, I say 99%, almost all of my clients, they're like, yeah, I don't know that I believe it yet that I was made good, but I'm
Mhm.
here because I want to, you know, and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm ready to do the work and I believe that it's possible, but I'm not there yet. And sometimes just having someone else that's certain and been like, I know that you know how to do this. And I've watched so many people go through the exact same process and it's worked out for them. Like you're no different. It's going to work out
Yeah.
for you too. That it just completely fuels the journey.
Yeah. And I feel like um it's so important as an entrepreneur to understand that and also give them the assurance that like that's enough fuel for the journey to get started, right?
You're not going to get more than that. Like we don't do crystal balls here. We don't do psychics. We don't do none of that.
No.
We literally just have to like walk by faith and be like, I literally cannot see the future. I just think I have to do this. And I
Yeah.
just think that it's going to work out. And I'm going to work until it works out.
Yeah.
Has to
How
be
has
enough.
Yeah. And look, I think it is though. I mean, I've definitely experienced that for myself.
Me too.
And how does that help you, that faith, that trusting, when you are doing scary things as an entrepreneur, when you're like, I got this thing going with my business and it's a little like, like, how does that help you?
Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, this morning, I had to lay in bed and have that conversation with God where I like started to feel some panic coming up and something unexpected that is like so not cool happened in my business. And I'm
Mm,
like, all right, I have two options. I literally only have two. I get consumed by the panic and I'm certain to fail and I will not get out of this. And like, who knows where that will lead? Or I decide that this is kind of a game, that the Lord knew that this was going to happen and that he's
mhm.
given me everything that I need. Like I always think about the story of the prodigal son. We always focus on the younger son. Right. He like asks his father for his inheritance. He runs off, he spends all of it. And
Yeah.
then he's like literally eating like looking at the food that the pigs are eating and being like, they're eating better than I am. I'm finally
Mhm.
gonna like muster up the courage to go back home. And so he goes
Yeah.
home and his father runs to him, receives him, puts a robe on him and a ring on him, right?
Yeah.
But like I think the older son is
Mm,
incredibly relatable because he
yeah.
then turns to the Lord, he's like to the father and he's like, I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do that. I didn't
Where's my
disrespect you.
party?
Right? Where's my, you never even gave me like a small animal to like enjoy with my friends. Like what's going on here? And like the words that the father spoke to him, I literally hear the Lord speak to my heart every single time
Mm,
that I am getting into any kind of panic or being like, this is really scary, God. Like, am I going to be able to do this? I think about this story and one other, which is like, he says, hey, everything that I have is yours. And so I like can go back and be like, okay, if everything that the Lord has is mine, I have nothing to fear. It also makes me
nothing.
think about like the disciples in the boat with Jesus, and Jesus is asleep in the boat. And there's like a terrible storm happening, and they start freaking out and they wake him up. And like the challenge of the Christian life and of the Christian entrepreneur is to let Jesus sleep in the boat. Like know that he's got it handled. And like if I knew, if I really believed that Jesus has this handled and this storm is not going to kill me, we are not going to die, then like how would I go through this? I might be like
Yeah.
on the edge of the boat, like whooping and cheering and having the best time of my life and being like, this is crazy because I know that I'm safe. So I now I can just like experience
The
this like
ride.
incredible, yeah, the ride, instead of having panic in it. So like those two things of being like, Lord, you have me, and I never want to see you face to face and be like, oh, Flor, you should have trusted me more. Like if I heard him say that, I would be crushed. I
Mm,
never want him to look at me and be like, look at all the things that we could have done if you had trusted me. And like, look at how much more peace you could have lived and brought into this world. Look at how much more you could have loved if you just trusted me and you didn't live in so much fear. So I'm on like a mission to like push past all fear because I'm like, I can't have him say that to me.
mm. I don't want to say that to me either.
Yeah,
And
right?
yeah, it's funny. Like this whole week, I've just been thinking about like how limited I am in what I see and like the possibilities that I imagine and the things that I pray for and like and what I believe is possible, you know? And it's been really interesting for me to take a look and be like, it still comes back to that core of like, what do I believe about myself? And if I believe I'm good and that I've been promised everything, which is like such an abundant way of looking at things, then like how can I let that inform how I show up with the things I go for in my business, like the offers that I make, the people that I reach out to, the the message that I have or how bold I am in what I'm saying. And it's just so interesting that all of those things are tied together and like what if we just trusted more?
What if? And you're so right, because it's like it's not a free pass that like now every single offer you make is going to sell out and people are always going to be clamoring at your door. Like
Yes.
everything the Lord has is yours, so you're about to be a millionaire next week when you start believing that. But it's really of this like this certainty that like God's got me.
Yeah.
So like I can do this, and I'm going to pull from like a massive well of strength because it's guaranteed to me that things are going to be hard. Like
Yeah.
I know that it is guaranteed on this side of heaven things are going to be hard and I'm going to suffer and I'm going to have to toil. And I'm doing this prayer book like devotional thing right now, and he was saying like God will never answer the prayers that make you need him less.
Mm,
And so sometimes I think so often in our business, it's easy to be like, oh Lord, like let me just hit that $1 million year. Like let me hit the 8 figure year. Like let everything go well. Let this launch go well. Like make
yeah.
people love this new offer, all those kinds of things. And like just because it's not answered immediately, one, doesn't mean that he's not going to answer it. But two, it doesn't mean that like you have to quit or give up
Yeah.
or that you're
Yeah.
100% on the wrong path. Definitely pray about it if you're on the wrong path. But like sometimes he's just like, hey, we're going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to learn how to like, yes, you can be a self-employed entrepreneur, but you cannot be self-sufficient in the process.
No, no. And I feel like that's one of the best things about entrepreneurship, though. Don't you feel? It's like nothing has been, it's a spiritual journey. Like it's
Literally,
so spiritual. It's like,
literally.
this is like nothing is certain except the fact that like I'm right here right now. And like and
Like,
and it just you're always in deep, like you're in deeper water continuously. It's like, you still can't touch the ground. Sorry, like keep going.
100%. It's
Yeah.
the whole like, and that was when I started my business. I felt like it was like being like, okay, Jesus, I want to
Yeah.
do this. Call me out of the boat. Because really, we have to remember that Jesus didn't just call Peter out of the boat. Peter asked him to call him out of
Yeah.
the boat. He said, if that's you,
Yes.
like, call me out.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, it was like my idea. And
Mhm.
he's like walking on water and he's standing there with our Lord. And it's only when he gets distracted by the wind that he begins to sink.
Yeah.
It's only when he gets and like wind of all things, like such a harmless and such a normal daily thing. This like simple distraction was enough to take his eyes off the Lord and cause him to start to sink. And he's like, I'm drowning, save me. So
Yes.
this idea, like talk about being in deep waters. And it's like, one, I chose this.
Mhm.
And why did I choose it? Like, why
Yeah.
did I think that this was a good idea? Why did I feel like you were like inviting me and giving me this gift, Lord? And then recognizing that, like, yeah, if with great power, with great freedom comes great responsibility. So, like, we're gonna be in deep, and there ain't no way that I can swim in waters this deep. Like, I have to have him beside me if I'm gonna like make it through.
Yeah. Is there anything that you love about that? The deep waters that you're in?
It's you, I just picture it sometimes that I'm like, he was probably on that sea. So he was a fisherman. He was on it all the time. And he always had like his boat underneath him, or he would be standing on the shore watching it. Like if I live in California, like if I got to stand
Mhm.
in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with Jesus, like one, that would freak me out. But two, like being like, I would have never been here. Like I would have never gotten to experience this.
Mhm.
And that's the real, like literally the past few years of entrepreneurship, every day I'm like, oh my gosh, like my life could have never looked like this
Mm-mm.
unless I took this very, very particular route. And like, what a
Yeah.
gift. Like I would have never met you. I would have never met like so many of my clients, like all of these different people that make my life so rich and that I'm so
Mhm.
grateful. And that are what make life beautiful. I would have never gotten to see this side.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
thrill.
it is a thrill. I love it. Even though sometimes I'm like, okay.
Tired.
My legs, I'd love to touch some solid ground under me right now, but I feel like for me, that's why I needed to be an entrepreneur because I didn't have, this was not my plan. Like when I set out after college, it was like, this was not my plan at all. But yet it was like this steady like promptings. And I was like, are you sure? 'Cause that's not what I was gonna do. Um, but I feel like it's grown me so much
Yeah.
because of
The
that.
ultimate stretcher.
Yeah. Flo, one of the things that you often talk about is like the female body. And why do you feel that a female entrepreneur needs to understand and care for her body?
Oh my goodness. The reality is that we are not small men,
Nope.
right? I know that the business world, we probably look to a lot of men for phenomenal business advice. We have different mentors, and it's incredible, but we are inherently different.
Yeah.
That doesn't just mean that the way that we want to, right, the way that a female entrepreneur runs her business has a very, very different mindset in the back, right? How
Yeah.
often I was listening, literally I was talking to entrepreneurs yesterday, they're two partners, and they were like, yeah, we were calculating like what do we do when one of us gets pregnant, right?
Mm,
That
yeah.
alone, like your
Yeah.
capacity for motherhood, means that your entrepreneurship is going to look different. Let's say that you
Mhm.
are never married, never become a mom. You're like, I don't even, that's not even a factor. That's okay. You have a cycle, right?
Yep.
Let's say that
Mhm.
you don't have a cycle. That's okay. You still have a feminine heart that has these certain rhythms, right? That we like cannot operate at the same pace every single day. Or like maybe you're like, I can, like, I'm tough enough to do it. Cool. I love you. And that might
Mhm.
be true. And I want you to consider, are we working in a pace and in a way that you will then be able to experience fruits by the time you hit your 60s, 70s, and 80s?
Mm,
Or are we burning the candle on both ends or running so fast or at a speed that's so unsustainable that you actually might end up getting towards the end of your entrepreneurship journey? Maybe you decide to retire, you decide to exit the company, and now you're left with more health troubles because of that ambition. So I think that ambition needs to be channeled and rooted back in the reality of like, I'm human. It's okay to be little. And it's very important that I understand what my body needs and how it works so that I can work with it rather than against it and actually use these rhythms to kind of optimize my business rather than constantly working against it and wondering like, ooh, like what's going to show up in my blood work next time? Or like, ooh, is this okay? Like, is this too much stress? Like, am I sleeping enough? All those kinds of things. So I think it's
yeah.
critical for like someone who's ambitious and successful to keep the humanity piece in it so that you can really see the most growth for as long as possible.
Yeah. That's just mic drop. I love that so much. And it's funny because I feel like that's a recent thing for me to hear, like maybe
Mhm.
just in the past year of really considering that. Um, because I mean, and I look at what I have six older brothers. And so like I remember even just hearing about a cycle for the first time and I was like, what? Like, because my mom she had a hysterectomy when I was born. And so like literally I had never even, I was like, what is that? I'd never heard of it, and just like so the world that I grew up in was very much this masculine, which I feel like in my little micro world it was, but then at large it still is. Like you don't have school schedules don't change, work schedules don't change. So how do you keep that like honoring both of those things where it's like, well, I live in this world that's kind of set up more for like the way a man's hormone cycle, which is a 24-hour cycle works as opposed to like mine. How do you do that and still show up? Because I know you do amazing things in your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, and it's like it's good to know that the honoring isn't a replacement for
No.
living real life. I think
Yeah.
sometimes women might hear that and think like, "Oh, you just want to tell me that I have to take the whole week of my period off and then I'm almost like I'm this fragile little flower
Yeah.
and I have to like run my whole life around the fact that I'm a woman." Like that
Mm.
sounds regressive, right? Like that might be the
Uh-huh.
thought, but the reality is like let me just paint the picture.
Okay,
There is
let's
a
hear
massive difference between waking up, checking your email, immediately hopping on client messages and responding to those things,
it.
grabbing
Hmm.
a cup of black coffee, heading over to the office, working. You get so into your project, you're so laser focused that you actually skip lunch. You're going to stay a little bit later today. Oop, now you need to rush over and pick up the kids. So you drive over and now you're making them dinner and you're like scrambling to throw something together really quickly. After they go to sleep, you realize you still have some work left to do. So you're going to stay up until 11 on your laptop and finish it.
Mm.
That is like just go, it's without boundaries. Like I like to consider your femininity and your feminine rhythms like as this like water, right? Which is this very, very powerful life force. And it can be chaotic left to its own devices, right? When we think about the
Right.
masculine versus the feminine, like the feminine is very like spontaneous, it ebbs and flows. There's like a certain
Hmm.
chaos to our nature, whereas men are
Hmm.
very steady. They're like the
Yeah.
rocks on the shore. Like they are
Hmm.
so consistent. Um,
Bless them.
Bless them. We need them. And that's the
We
thing,
do.
like the complementarity, like we need them. We need both of
Yeah.
us in this world. We need both of us even in like the business world. Like it's
Hmm.
critical. And so then like having riverbanks, and so when I say like understanding your body enough to honor it and to have certain parameters with how you live your life. So it's like, hey, I am sure that there are important emails in my inbox. You know what's more important? That I don't completely destroy my circadian rhythm, that I have order, that I
Yeah.
like have a cadence to how I do things, that I have boundaries around my work, that I know that like me skipping meals is actually going to make me more brain foggy, more frantic, snapping at my husband by the time he gets home. And so that's actually not worth doing that either. So it's having a certain structure, but you can
Mm.
only have structure when you have understanding.
Yeah. Mm. Only have structure when you have understanding. That's so good. And I feel like that's empowering, like that knowledge of that. And I love that your way of looking at it, you're not like, this isn't a limiting thing. This is a freeing thing.
Yeah. What's limiting and what's like prison like that I'm like, praise God that this is not my life anymore, is like living in the constant throes of like my body just doing what it does and me not knowing how to handle it and being so
Yeah.
frustrated and like getting like thrown about by the different trends and the different advice and trying different diets and all that kind of stuff. Instead of just like knowing, hey, I know the blueprint, I know how this is designed, I know what it takes. So once we can set those systems up and like what it takes for your body to be like optimized, we care so much about optimization in our business. Like, and we say like you'll fall to the level of your systems. Like your body has systems,
Yeah.
literally, like it has literal systems,
Yeah.
and there's systems for how you can go about and navigate the day and the month and the year within that. And that's where you get all 30 days back of the month, because you're
Mm,
not like doubled over and like in bed with a heating pad on your period. That's
yeah.
where you know that you can like book that work trip and go to that conference, and you're going to be able to eat and find like whatever it is that everyone else is eating, because like you can trust your gut and you're not going to be like 6 months pregnant looking bloated or like having diarrhea every day. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gross, but
Yeah.
those are the realities. That's what living in chaos is. Or it's
Hmm.
like knowing that you'll be able to schedule interviews all year round and not worry if like your face is breaking out. Like it is so critical that you have structure so that you can have freedom. It's the same thing as like the government. Well, I don't want to even talk about the government right now, but like like um parents aren't trying to like hurt or restrain their children when they
Um,
put a baby gate up on the stairs when they know that child does not know how to go down the stairs, right?
yeah.
It gives
Yeah.
them the freedom. Now you can use the whole second floor of the house, bud. Like you
Yeah.
can wander through all of the rooms, and this one guardrail is what's going to protect you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like it's either this or you have to be in your pack and play. You have to be in like a 4 foot situation. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
like, understanding your feminine body is where you have the freedom to do what is right, and it can channel all of that energy and that creativity and that ambition into a way that's really, really fruitful.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's helped that understanding for you has helped you be more
Yes.
fruitful?
Yes, because left to my own devices, I will work to no end. Like
Yeah.
I will zero in so hard. I share this story in my challenge, but like I last year I went to the it's like crazy to hear me say that it's last year, but like it was just 1 week
Mm,
of being like, whatever, I'm going to go pedal to the metal, and I'm actually
mhm.
going to ignore everything that I know because I really, really need this launch to work out. And I worked to the point of going to the ER with chest pains. And I was like, I'm 27. Like, I
Oh,
cannot be having
no.
chest pains right now. And they were like, yeah, there's a potential that your heart is enlarged right now. I ended up wearing a heart monitor for a month. I had to do
Oh
these whole
my
stress
goodness.
tests. And I was like in this office as a 27-year-old, and everyone else there is like 75. And I was like,
Yeah.
what am I doing at this heart doctor? Like, what is going on? And I
Wow.
think that was, again, talk about self reliance, the Lord being like, hey, Angel, like, left to your own devices, you don't know like
Yeah.
how to have like healthy boundaries and when to stop and when to go, unless I give you this structure, right?
Mhm.
So for me it's like having the structure alongside of like, okay, Lord, am I like freaking out not doing this? So like that spiritual structure, but also the structure of like, hey, we don't get to skip meal times, we
Nope.
don't get to like get rid of the habits that keep our stress low, like we don't get to kind of override our needs, our biological needs, which I think
Mhm.
so many women can see as nuisances sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Oh,
it's
I've
so
been there.
annoying. Yeah,
For sure. For sure.
like that you're like, oh, it's so annoying that I'm hungry right now when I'm right at the good part of this project, or it's so annoying that I have to go to bed, or it's so annoying that I have a period. Like we can see it as nuisances, but it's really these reminders, these calls back to reality of like, you are human, you are human, you are not self-sufficient.
Yeah. Wow. Um, I just love that flip and perspective because I for sure that's something that I feel like I am constantly having to remind myself of like because my brain loves to get focused. But that, I love hyper focus. I love just like
It feels so good,
running
doesn't
away with
it?
something and just being like in my own little world, and it's been a real good important thing for me to learn like, hey, you also need to take care of this beautiful body that you've been given that makes all of the good things possible that
Yeah.
you want. And it's been really good for me. And man, has my stress level gone down. Like it's crazy. Even though I feel like sometimes I'm like, I gotta reel myself in, but I'm like way more present and I'm with my kids, like when I'm not working. And because I actually am like, work is over, done,
Yeah.
and but like my stress is like way, way lower.
Like imagine, because I like love watching, and we like get to be a part of a really cool community of female
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, and like seeing like what everyone is doing is like so incredible, and you see the impact, and like, but I would hate to get like 4 decades down the road and
Yeah.
look back and be like, oh my gosh, like everyone's really sick, you know, like
Yeah.
what we did, what we worked so hard for, and like
Yeah.
people are like in serious trouble now.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of having that like longer term mindset
Yeah,
of being like, what I'm doing is good. And if I want to keep doing it, there actually has to be some strategy here.
for sure. And I feel like it's really owning your purpose and your mission rather than letting it own you,
Ooh,
right?
yes. Talk about it.
Yeah. Where it's just like, I mean, because I felt that before where it's like this thing riding me and it won't ever end. And I'm like, what if I'm the one clinging on to, like, what if I get to be in charge of my purpose and the way that it's shaping my life and rather than the other way around?
Oh my gosh. I remember a few years ago, it like freaked me out because I was more towards the beginning of my business, and I saw like this really big entrepreneur announce that she was shutting down her entire business.
Hmm.
And the way that she described it was she was like, I accidentally built a machine that was running my life, and it was like running away from me. And
Yeah.
I remember, and that has like stuck with me the whole time, that I
Mm,
will always check back in and be like, okay, are these intentional choices, or is this like starting to run me? Like where are we going next? Like Lord, you tell me, like what the heck is up next? Because you're right, it is easy to be like, oh my gosh, and it's just going and start to feel like things are snowballing, unless you're able to kind of bring things back down, check back in, slow down enough to assess.
yeah.
Such a good point.
Mm. I love that story. I'm gonna remember that.
The machine.
Yeah, that
I
machine.
know.
Ugh.
She literally had like hundreds of thousands of followers. Like I think it was a multi-million-dollar business.
Mm,
So like a massive YouTube account, Instagram account, like all these incredible things.
yeah,
And she was like, I've kind of built a monster.
yeah.
So it was a
So
big like word of
interesting.
caution.
Yeah, so interesting. And it makes me just think about like the fruits that we want our business to bear
Mhm.
and like are, are we really planning like what else do we want it to bear besides like success,
Yeah.
but like time with my family, freedom, like and how do you when we have these beautiful rhythms in our own body that help us make sure that we're bearing the right fruit.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It
really cool.
like it'll be a gut check. It's this little
Yeah.
guidepost. It's this little
Yeah.
like your body will send you. And that's the fun thing about like learning how what your symptoms mean and how to respond to them, is that
Hmm.
like your symptoms are your body's only way of communicating with you. And so
Yeah.
when you can start to see, and each person has their things. I saw like a tweet once that was like, every girl you know is either a headache girly or a stomachache girly. And I am a stomachache girly. So like I know that if I start getting stomach aches again, like if my gut starts acting up, it's my body being like, woohoo, like we need
Yeah.
some attention. Like what we're doing right now isn't working. It's like such a good little reminder of like, oh, okay, like something is out of order. Instead of it being like, oh my gosh, this is so random, or I'm just gonna like live off of Tums or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful. That reminds me, do you remember when we chatted at Sales Mastery Live? We just talked a little bit about how like really there's this drive, this force to get us disconnected from our bodies because that's where our power lies. Do you remember talking about that a little bit?
Like how the devil will like
Yeah.
literally spend all day trying to
Yeah.
destroy your femininity and fertility.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, I feel that, I mean, that is like, it's this thing where we've given this gift because women are beautiful, but then it becomes like we want to be looked at,
Mhm,
right? And then it distract or don't want to be looked at, right? Whatever that is.
mhm,
But we objectify our own body, we objectify ourselves, and then we literally lose our power and wonder like where it went and how we can get it back.
mm. Yeah. Like I always think about how the woman is the heart of the home,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
We obviously like as Christians, we believe that the husband is the head of his home, but the woman is the heart. And
Yeah.
so if the devil is running around shooting arrows at every single woman's heart, trying to
Mm,
destroy her and trying to like distract her from the reality of how God made her and what her purpose is, which is like to love God, to
yeah.
love others, to be holy.
Hmm.
Um, and like the minute that we kind of get off course of that, of like what your true purpose is, like what your who
Yeah.
your real identity is, who you really are at the end of the day, when no one is looking, when no one cares, like none of this is going to be on your gravestone. So it's like what will be, you know? What
Mm,
are like those character, that character and that identity that will last longer than you do? And if we can keep sight of that, that's where we can have like incredible impact, generational impact, which
yeah,
is I think what we really want is we want to like leave a legacy that's bigger than us.
for sure. We do. And I love that when we heal that, when we go back to that, oh, I'm good. My body's good. I'm going to
Yeah.
care for my body. Then I become powerful. Then I become free to have the impact that, like, that fire I have in me can actually, like, become real and
Yeah.
serve its purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
it's cool. Oh, thank you. Is there anything else that you just want to leave? What do you want entrepreneurs to know about?
Um, if no one's told you this in a while, I want you to know that I'm super proud of you and
Mm,
that the work that you're doing, a lot of it is hidden and a lot of it, like, people don't even get to see like how much heart and how much love you're putting into your business. And so if no one's cheered you on in a hot sec, I want you to know that you're doing a good job, that you're doing better than you realize, that you're capable of more than you realize, and that like everything's going to work out. You know, like just keep
yeah.
on going. Everything's going to work out. And you being a woman in business is part of your gifting. It's not something that you have to work against, but it's essential. It's essential to what you're doing in the world. And I hope that you know that you are very, very good and that you don't have to earn it.
Mm, that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks.
having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I could talk to you for so long.
Me
You
too.
you just have such a beautiful light and a beautiful strength, and I feel like you really embody what you teach.
Wow. Thank you so much. That means a
You're
lot.
welcome.